William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. Welcome to the College of Complexes, being held at Barbeck's Restaurant at 8949 Garland Road, Dallas, Texas. Gently embracing the east side of White Rock Lake. When I entered, I was greeted like coming home to Grandma's house, warm and friendly. When visiting the Barbeck's Restaurant, tell them you want your reservations for the next College of Complex class.
Can you hear me all right? Can you hear it? Better? All right. Well, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 229th meeting since we started in February of 2009. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require our speakers to take a position on an issue, express a point of view. They have to be for or against something, don't care what it is. We give an hour to make a presentation. If anybody interrupts the speaker, remind the interrupter. We only listen one fool at a time. That's one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers, not speeches. And then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everybody in this audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at this podium to respond to what the speaker said for or against. And then our speaker gets the last word, gets a comment and close the meeting. But before we put our speakers, are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Anybody have any announcements they want to make? Come on up here, Jim. He's going to make an announcement. Well, she's the vice president. All right.
With a mouthful of veggie soup. Sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to make my little reminder comments tonight. We were really glad to see you here. It's refreshing to see the meeting start back up after a 2-week break. We don't get those very often. Once in a while we get a week off, but we always celebrate Memorial Day and Labor Day weekend. Occasionally 4th of July if it comes on a Friday or Monday. But we took this break and it was nice. Everybody got to go see family or entertain family. So welcome back to everybody. It's refreshing to see you. I won't preach a sermon tonight, but just a reminder, and to anybody who hasn't heard it before, Barbeck's is very generous with us. They let us come and use the room with no meeting room charge. And for that we promise to buy food. So they're not just giving us free. And we tip the waitress generously, who takes care of all of us at one time, very capably, in which we appreciate. So buy some food, tip the server, and help us maintain the relationship we've had with them. Sometimes we all roll in at once, and the server and her helper are back here working like crazy trying to satisfy them, and somebody will say, "Jim, it took me 15 minutes to get my food. I couldn't believe it." And I said, well, if you just look and you see there's everything they're trying to do at the same time, they do it capably, and they always serve us good food, and we're very appreciative of it. So thank you all for coming tonight. It's refreshing to see you here. You're being treated to a good speaker tonight. She spent her life in front of a classroom, so she definitely knows how to communicate to people in an audience, and I'm sure she'll have some things to say that'll provoke your thinking and generate some good questions and hopefully some good discussions. So that's all I have to say, Tom. It's back to you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? You got one? Yeah.
You announced.
All right. Well, there's a TARA meeting Wednesday at 12:30 at post office in, where is it?
The postal APWU Hall.
APWU Hall in
2010 Postal Way.
2010 Postal Way.
Over by the, it's over by the SPCA.
Over
Hampton.
off Hampton by the SPCA. So
It's very easy to find.
it's easy to find.
It's easy to go to from here, from this part of town.
It's easy to get to from here too. So I'm easy. Anyway, that's Wednesday. Something to see. Well, next week we have Rosemary Rigger. She's going to talk about religion and labor. What is the connection? It's on your itinerary there. And June 14th, we have Allison Henley. She's going to talk about how astrology is a connection between us and the greater universe. And that should be interesting. And that's also in your itinerary. I'm not going to put you to sleep reading it. Getting on to tonight. Our speaker, Judy Bryant's going to talk about the Ryan budget, bad ideas for seniors. She's a field organizer for the Texas Alliance of Retired Americans. She'll present information about the Ryan budget, which once again proposes privatizing Medicare and turning it into a voucher system while lowering tax rates on the wealthy and corporations. The newest interaction of the Ryan budget asks seniors to pay more for preventive health services and prescription drugs, while again ending the Medicare guarantee. Regarding Social Security, Ryan has said that the Social Security Trust Fund is not a real savings account, questioning the value of U.S. bonds, which is erroneous. Get the facts and address the allegations that Social Security is broke and will soon come to an end. So, without further ado, please give a very, very warm welcome to Judy Bryant.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate the, first of all, since Tom talked about it, mentioned it, I will go ahead and tell you our Dallas, Texas Alliance for Retired Americans chapter does meet the first Wednesday of each month, and we'll be meeting this Wednesday, the 4th of June, at 12:30. We meet from 12:30 to 2, and we are very precise about that time. Tom is our vice president, and George Nolan, that many of you know, is our president. And we have a speaker this week is Fernando Rojas, who is a member of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, and he's going to talk about the issues that the silver-haired legislators will be, asking us to work on in the 2015 Texas Legislature. So he's going to go over those particular things. The APWU Hall is, pardon? At the APWU Hall, and the address is 2010 Postal, P-O-S-T-A-L, Postal Way. It's actually, if you're coming from this area, if you go Woodall Rogers and go across the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge, go all the way out Singleton to Hampton. No, this is the easier way. You do not get lost this way. You go all the way out Singleton to Hampton, take a left on Hampton, a right on Commerce, and a left on Postal Way. And that way you don't accidentally get off, because you can accidentally get off of I-30 on Hampton and not go the right direction, not go the right place. So from here, and if you haven't driven through West Dallas, it's great to see what all has happened over there too. Along, you just go Singleton to Hampton, left on Hampton, then there's a light at Commerce, right on Commerce, and then left on, Yeah, but anyway, it's the APWU Hall. And anybody, we're not just for anybody who's retired, we're for anybody who would like to preserve and defend the right to retire. To preserve and defend the right to be retired. That's the Alliance for Retired Americans does that. That's exactly what we are. Our national motto is, let's not be the last generation to retire, because we know it's under attack. Retirement is under attack in many different ways. And one of the ways that it has been under attack are various proposals that have come from the Ryan budgets of the last 3 or 4 years, constantly in proposals that have happened. On April 10th, the U.S. House passed the Ryan budget for fiscal year 2015, and it would harm seniors and also provide a windfall for millionaires. It does make deep cuts to a lot of domestic programs, not only things like Social Security and Medicare, but also to the food programs, the Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Program, which really does provide a lot of help to some seniors, various things. It was pretty amazing how much they ended up cutting in that program, and we all here are fortunate, that we have food, but we know there are people in our midst even who need that program. So, and this was passed by the House, but very little chance of it passing in the Senate, and just all of you are quite aware that after our government shutdowns last fall, the House and Senate, actually between the House and Senate, they came to an agreement to fund the government and to really not have this, come to an end like we did last fall, where we were in a government shutdown for a while. But it's still just the ideas that continue to be put forth are very scary. There are some different things that are planned for Medicare. One thing, voucherizing Medicare, and this is specifically what it will do. And I do have handouts for you when I'm done that has all of this information very specifically in a handout from the Alliance for Retired Americans. Yes, because all of these things are so specific, and I did not want to leave it to chance to not get the right information exactly. Ryan's 2015 budget replaces Medicare's guaranteed benefits with a premium support payment, a limited stipend that new beneficiaries would receive to purchase private insurance or traditional Medicare starting in 2024. Now they want to say, well, don't worry about it. This is 2014. You're not going to be affected. Well, yeah, we all hope we'll still be around in 10 years. And other people who are going to be getting of the Medicare age. So the amount of this voucher would be based on the average bid plan available in the area. So basically, people would have to go and purchase insurance, and an above average bid they'd pay higher premiums. Also, he says it would not affect current beneficiaries or those age 56 or older. So if you were a short time away from qualifying for Medicare, but says Medicare works for many reasons, and if it did not, when you're considering this, the volume of the beneficiaries in Medicare is what allows the government to have better bargaining power along these lines. And if you cut back the bargaining power of the many people that are in the Medicare program, then it is going to affect everybody. I don't care what age you are, whether you've qualified for Medicare or whether you will qualify for Medicare. So, that under this plan, private insurers could decide they were going to insure the younger and healthier folks, whereas not taking those that might have pre-existing conditions and other things, and people who have problems. So it would leave Medicare with a disproportionate share of people who have, who do have some problems, and that would drive up costs for everybody. Another thing that has been widely talked about is raising the Medicare eligibility age to 67, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. It says Ryan's instruction to the Congressional Budget Office included a proposal that would raise the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 67 over an 11-year period, phasing it in. But this could increase out-of-pocket health costs by about $2,200 a year for those individuals 65 and 66. And it could also, that group is the group that has the hardest time. If you're 65 or 66, there's a greater chance of us having some chronic health problems. And a lot of people are very fortunate when they get to be 65 because they do qualify for Medicare. I have a good friend who was laid off from her job at 2 months before she turned 65. She was a diabetic with kidney problems and high blood pressure. And thank goodness that she only had about 6 or 7 weeks before she was eligible for Medicare at 65, because there was no way she could have afforded the COBRA insurance or any of those kinds of things at all. So Medicare, as she said, saved her life, because she was able to go on Medicare and she was fired from a job. And so that happens to so many people, and we know so many people who are in the 55 plus age range who are working, who are in the 60, 65 plus, 70 age range, who are still working because of various things. And, you know, to supplement retirement income, or sometimes it's just really to live, because that's very necessary. So any cuts to any of these things would negatively impact people. Of course, another thing that the Ryan budget and the budget, they've had, 56 votes or something to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which is now has had about approximately 7 million people sign up for that. And those folks that are in that age gap who retire before they're eligible for Medicare, there are people in those age ranges, like between 60 and 65, who have signed up for the Affordable Care Act. I know as a retired educator, they are now going to say that the retirement age for you to get full medical benefits with your teacher retirement system has been upped to 62. When people, you know, younger folks that are coming along, I retired when I was almost 59, 58, 59, and was on the TRS Care insurance fully before just this last year becoming eligible for Medicare. Well, that is dooming people to teach or try to even longer. And with all the things going on in the public schools, especially here in Dallas, as you heard Hobie Huckel talk about a few weeks ago, and all this home rule thing and things just going on, it's becoming more and more difficult. And I know you said you're subbing and everything. It's just very difficult. So it would just be automatically, well, yeah, no, we're retired, but you're still substituting. So it would just be hard to do that. Another thing that is a problem is means testing of Medicare beneficiaries. As you know, people who now make $85,000 a year or more, an individual or a couple with $170,000 or more pay higher Medicare premiums. But this proposal would means test 25% of beneficiaries. So there would be a lot of people who would have even higher Medicare payments. And then another thing, it said if 25% of the beneficiaries were means tested, it would affect somebody who was making $47,000 a year today. That used to sound like a lot of money, but it's not really with today's economy and the way things have gone. So the means testing of Medicare is just not a good idea. It also would gut Medicaid, block grant Medicaid, and obviously affecting seniors because it's the largest provider of long-term care for seniors. As you know, here in Texas, unfortunately, we did not have the expansion of Medicaid that was available to many states because of our current governor. But we still have a lot of people who are receiving Medicare and Medicaid benefits who are in long-term care facilities. And so the whole idea would gut that. Another thing that it would do, the plans for Social Security. This is something that we really all have to be mindful of. One thing it says the Ryan 2015 budget establishes a fast-track procedure designed to force cuts to Social Security. Any year that the Social Security Trust Fund does not meet 75-year solvency, the Board of Trustees must provide recommendations to the President, who must then draw up implementing legislation to change the program. One of the things that we talked about at our recent Alliance for Retired Americans convention in Las Vegas, we had a very excellent seminar from people from a group called Social Security Works, that is a national organization that is a partner with the Alliance for Retired Americans. And you know that we all hear comments all the time about the Social Security system. One of the things that they've suggested, instead of saying, when anyone approaches you and starts talking about Social Security, say it's our Social Security system. It's the system, or our system, because how did they get all that money there? We paid into it. Our employers paid into it. We earned it. Every last one of us earned it. And if we start saying our system or the system, then it gives us ownership of it, which we really do have. I mean, I'm sorry, they try to tell us all kinds of things. Another thing, when they start talking about entitlements, say, no, that's an earned benefit. That's an earned benefit. We earned that Social Security. And it wasn't, wasn't any gift at all. And we need to just change the messaging. Another thing that the Ryan budget would be opposed to raising the earnings cap. A common thing that has been called is scrap the cap. But a message that we could all say is everyone should pay the same rate. Everyone should pay the same rate. Remember that. If you continually say that, because what that would do is if everyone pays the same rate in Social Security, the system is fixed for 75 years and longer. So everyone paying the same rate. That is, like I said, that's the idea of doing that. It says, if all paid the same rate, and even if the benefits were not adjusted, the trust fund would remain solvent for the next 75 years. Another important thing to say when you're talking about Social Security that we all hear quite frequently is Social Security is facing a crisis. It's just such a crisis, okay? This was the messaging that Social Security Works suggested that we use. The crisis is not in our Social Security system. The crisis is in the rest of the retirement system. America's pensions are gone, housing is down, 401ks are unreliable. Our Social Security system is totally funded for more than 2 decades. It's the most sound, secure thing we have, and it's the only retirement left we can count on. So, when they say it's facing a crisis, remember, the crisis is not in our system, it's in our overall retirement system. Another thing that we have, that you hear all the time is, well, we have to reduce Social Security benefits in order to save it. And that's, every time they start talking about it, continue to say our Social Security system is the financial foundation that seniors count on to retire with basic security, and it is sound for more than 2 decades. And if everyone pays the same rate, there's that line again, it's sound for 75 years. If everyone pays the same rate. Then another thing that we hear quite often is there aren't enough workers per retiree, because that's an issue. I know I've heard Tom talk about that in the railroad system. But statistics show that actually we've had the same ratio for retirees to workers for about the last 35 years. The ratio might change, but so will our productivity. All we need is to maintain our Social Security system by having all Americans what? Pay the same rate.
We all do.
Pay the same rate. Well, but we all pay the same rate, but once you get to a certain level, you don't pay at all.
They don't get any more benefits.
So, but we're saying if everybody pays the same rate on all their income, then, you know, that's what they're saying would fund it for 75 years out. So yeah, they would get more, but everybody else would, you know, their money would still fund it a lot better for the rest of us. Another thing, when they talk about raising the age for Medicare, for Social Security, anything, call it whatever you like, but it's a benefit cut. It is a cut. No matter what, it's a 6 to 7% benefit cut for every year. 6 to 7. I'm sorry, 6 to 7. Oh no. 6 to 7% benefit cut for every year the retirement age is raised. And obviously, the younger you are, the more your benefits will be cut. So you don't pay less, you just get less. And that's the idea that all of us are concerned about, I know, because we're thinking about our children and our grandchildren who are, and other generations who work, and they should have the same right to retirement that we do, that we've earned. And that's the whole idea. I think we, as whether we're of retirement age or not, we just need to start standing up and saying, we earned these things. We paid into it. Our employers paid into it. Whether it's Medicare or Social Security, we earned it. And we're not getting anything we didn't earn. And I know last January, I guess, Tom and I and a bunch of other folks went to a town hall meeting with Congressman Jeb Hensarling, who this gentleman ran against several times. But you know, I said to him, and I mean, we go to his office all the time, I said, Congressman, you know, you call it an entitlement like it's a dirty word, but if you put money in your savings or your 401k, doesn't it mean you're entitled to draw it out? I mean, that's just the deal. You're what? That's right, you're entitled to it. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of being made to feel guilty as if when we're getting our Social Security that we earn, that it's some handout. So, it's just us changing the messaging some with the people who are, that we're, you know, dealing with. And continuing to stand up and continuing to say this and continuing to stay educated about these things. Because retirement, or the right to retire, is under attack. Never so much as it has been before. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that aggravates the daylights out of me, because I qualified for my 40 quarters of Social Security a long time ago through teaching in another state, working in business as a home economist, and working for my union, for Alliance AFT. But when I'm eligible to draw Social Security here in a few months, it's going to be cut drastically because I'm a teacher, because they consider it the windfall elimination provision. And I'm sure you all realize that educators don't make a windfall.
It's not because you were a teacher, because you're getting two different government benefits.
Well, exactly, but it specifically applies to, yeah, TRS, ERS, anybody who's getting another, you know, government pension. But it also does not affect but people in about 12 or 13 states. So it's not something that's universal. Yeah, and Texas is one of them. Postal workers, there are some law enforcement folks, you know, there are other folks that are adversely affected by that. So The budget that was passed by the House that includes these potential cuts to Social Security and Medicare, luckily, as I said, it's not going to be passed by the Senate, but who knows what might happen after the November elections in a lot of, instances. And I'm sure that these things are going to be brought up again. They've been brought up every year for the last 3 or 4 years with these same general, ideas with cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those kinds of things. And that's why we have to stay very vigilant about these issues and keep hounding away at some of our folks that are our representatives and senators who don't seem to realize that people have earned these things. And we just have to keep saying to them, we earned it, it's our right to have it, and we're not going away. Jeb Hensling's, his district director, Michael Garcia, is very nice, and he knows when we go in there, but that way just let them know that you're still around and that we're going to continue to fight for what we know we earn. And along with this, and I do now, sorry, need to sit down because my knees are, anyway, I don't think I need a microphone. But I do for that. Okay. But yes, I don't want to get tackled, Susan. Anyway, I will bring up to you because I think it's on July 26th. Gene Lance, that's our Chicks Alliance for Retired Americans president, is going to speak here about ALEC. ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. They are an organization that is funded by billionaires, and they work behind the scenes in secret to help write and pass legislation that adversely affects almost every aspect of our lives, including things like health care and other issues. ALEC is having their national convention here in Dallas on July 30th to August the 1st. And so you might want to make note of that. On July 30th, and you will be getting information here about it, on July 30th, we're going to have a huge action at the Hilton Anatole. Is where they're meeting. The plans are being made now, and a number of us are going to regular meetings. And Rosemary Rieger, who will be here next week talking about things. Rosemary is the head of the anti-ALEC protest, but put July 30th on your calendar for the morning, because what we will be doing is letting them know that we don't believe in secret deals being made for our legislators to turn around and pass legislation that hurts us. If you're not familiar with ALEC, there's a website called www.alecexposed, all in one word, just ALEC exposed together.org. And look all through that. You'll see which legislators are part of it, corporations that are part of it, and various things. And these things all go together because, I don't know, I didn't look at it, but I'm going to have to go back and look. It wouldn't surprise me if Paul Ryan is an ALEC member. But a lot of the things that are going on now in our society, like this home rule takeover, are backed by ALEC-minded folks. Some of the things, with cuts to the Social Security, Medicare, various things, it's all about those folks at the top, the 1%, getting even more. And all of us are folks who worked. A lot of people are very successful, but they're not multimillionaires or billionaires like a lot of these people who believe that they have a right to make our laws and govern. I mean, they have a right to go in secret with legislators and write the bills and give them to them. And they pass them out in these meetings, and various state legislators get these bills. And then they go back to their legislature and they pass these bills. And guess who funds their campaigns? All these corporations that are part of this group. So, again, it's an attack, just like all these things, on all of us who have been working and are still working all of our lives to, to do things. And to the cuts with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all go back to some ALEC-minded type things. And so I hope that we would love to have you all join us with the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans. If you have not gotten one of our information cards, Susan, would you just share those with folks, please? I would invite you to, we have some folks, raise your hand because I know we've got members in here. We have Tara members in here. The Grover and y'all, their member and Susan's member. Yeah, so we would love to have you come join us. And the membership dues are, the membership dues are real expensive. They're $10 a year. so they're $10 a year. And if anybody's interested, here are membership applications. Thank you, Susan. But go and look. If any of you all are on Facebook, or look at our website. Our Facebook page is Texas Alliance for Retired Americans, and I post everything on there, updates of activities and things, and we post information. Jean Lance posts things on our website. Jean and I both do routinely. So there are a lot of things going on between the attack on, between this ALEC meeting and this attack on the Dallas school system, which I'm a 32-year retired DISD teacher, so this is really near and dear to my heart that they want to make it a private charter deal and take away the bedrock of our country in public education. You know, that's a good question, and no one has been able to answer that. I'm not really sure. I will tell you that it was very interesting. A lot of you may know Harriet Earhart, who's former state representative, and she's been a longtime friend of mine. And last Thursday night, she spoke at the DISD school board meeting on behalf of a coalition of which I'm a part called Our Community, Our Schools, to explain about this, the home rule, the bill that was passed in 1995. She voted against it. And obviously what Harriet said is that the reason that they passed this bill in 95 was because there were a lot of folks in the legislature who wanted to get private school vouchers passed, and they were not successful in doing that. There's been a voucher attempt for the last 25 years in every legislative session, and she said this home rule possibility was kind of a compromise among some folks in getting that. There was a guy named Kent Grusendorf who was from Arlington that we helped defeat, and he was the one who helped author this legislation with Senator Bill Ratliff. And so Harriet said it wasn't about educating the kids, it was about making money for the 1%. And Harriet said that's why she voted against it, and that came from a legislator who was working in the legislature at the time. So it's all about the top folks making money and making more money. No matter what area you're talking about, whether it's Social Security or Medicare, our schools, all of these things all tie together, and we see it more and more. And so that is another reason why we have really banded together the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans. We have chapters all over the state. We have a chapter here in Dallas, and then we have one in Fort Worth. It's very active. One in Austin, one in San Antonio is getting going, and then I'm going to Corpus Christi week after next to formalize their chapter, and then I have plans to go to Houston later this summer to get a chapter going there. So we as retirees or people interested in retiring can band together and let our voices be heard. And that's what's really important. And it's important for all of us to let our elected officials know that we're not going to stand and see Medicare, Social Security, and everything else cut because we earned it. Just remember to keep saying we earned it. It's not a handout. So thank you all so very much. And if anybody has any questions or comments or... Do I have... Oh, Susan, those are the other things. Thank you so much. I appreciate the lovely Miss Susan being the assistant here. One of the things I do want to, the Alliance for Retired Americans puts out excellent information and handouts with all the facts on things like this, on many, many issues. And I am so very grateful for that, because that way I have the statistics and the facts in front of me, you know, when I have a, you know, when as I go out and talk to people and various things. So, and if you check out their website, which is, our website is texasretiredamericans.org, and the National Alliance is just retiredamericans.org. There's all kinds of information on that also.
Question. Judy,
Yes.
what do you know about the status of the supposed death squad for senior citizens under Medicare?
You know, that question came up in a seminar I was in Las Vegas, and they absolutely said that that had been refuted, that there really was not any, you know, truth to that. It just was rumors that had been passed around. And so
I beg to differ with you.
well, I mean, that question came up, and so I'd like to hear from somebody who knows.
What the new Medicare rules have become is when an elder person goes in for surgery, heart attack, cancer, stroke, whatever, and he then is released, either recovered or not, if he comes back within 30 days, he has full coverage after 30 days. If he comes back in 3 days because of a relapse, what the new rules are is that he's in for observation rather than accepted as a patient. Under observation means that the patient pays for all of their care rather than Medicare.
Okay.
So it's putting an additional burden on the patient. And part of that is because Medicare is closing down on the hospitals that readmit within 30 days. And they're penalizing them financially to not do it. So in a roundabout way, quote unquote, the death squad is still very prevalent and will become more so.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I was not, you know, equating, I guess, the two. But yes, we even had that conversation on our staff call last Tuesday about that exact issue that you were talking about. So I guess I had not thought about it that way, but it really would be. And if somebody, I mean, because most folks probably could not afford paying full out of their pocket for things like that.
The key is when you get readmitted, do not let them put you in for under observation.
Right,
You
that's
have to be accepted as an inpatient regardless of how long it's been since you were there.
whether it's been 1 hour, 2 days, 3 days, whatever. Yes, that, and thank you for bringing that up, because that was discussed on on our staff call from Washington on Tuesday, and that was a big discussion. So that you have to be admitted, and it has to show for whatever issue you had, whatever condition, but not to have under observation or the word observation placed on there.
That puts the burden of the charges on the individual's back
and not on Medicare. So that's one of those important things to let everybody know, and hopefully that there's a patient advocate with someone to know that. And I will see, that question was asked about the observation. Our national staff that puts together these things said that in the next month they would be putting out something, some kind of a paper with some information about it. As soon as I have access to that, I'll make sure that, I drop by here or get it to Tom so that he could just share it with folks here, to have and pass the word around.
Of these handouts tonight, is your email address on here?
Yes, my email address and my phone and everything is on there. Yeah, it's Judy for Tara and everything. So please don't hesitate if you get information to send it to me.
Today, that's why it was fresh on my mind.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, great. And then if any of you would like to be included on our Dallas, Texas Alliance for Retired Americans email list, if you will make sure that I get your email, I will, anything like this, because that's how people can learn, is to share. I mean, normally I send people information about meetings and things, but this is important to share or to post. I do post a lot on Facebook, information that we get from our national and share. So thank you very much. That will be very helpful. Oh, you had a question.
I think back on the observation issue.
Nobody can hear
Be
you.
sure, probably they can't as loudly as I can. Okay. Regarding observation, I'm just going to alert anyone, and I could be totally wrong, but when my sister-in-law was in the hospital and about to be moved to a nursing facility, the issue came up that to be sure that she had been admitted to the hospital, not just being observed in the hospital. Otherwise, apparently Medicare might not have paid for those days that they would pay in the nursing facility. And I don't have all the facts. Just be careful that when you've got somebody going in there that you want to be sure that they're admitted and not just being observed.
Admitted and not observed. Admitted, not observed. Marjorie? Thank you so much.
I've
Thank you so
heard
much.
that the benefit for routine cataract surgery, which is kind of a aging fact of life, it's a matter of when, not if, has been compromised this calendar year. What do you know about that?
Actually, I'm not familiar with that, but maybe somebody else who has had some experience with it is.
I need cataract surgery per my ophthalmologist about 6 weeks ago. And when I asked what my cost was going to be, and I have Medicare and an Advantage plan, I was told that my copay would be $327.50 per eye. So there is still some coverage available. Now, it may be because of my Advantage plan, I don't know. But
I don't know. I know 3 people who have had cataract surgery in the last couple of months, that are Tara members, and they have none of them have had any problem with having it paid for.
Yeah.
So we have a copay.
Yes.
But that's still very reasonable to.
I would think so.
So.
I would imagine that the charge is going to be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 per eye. Per eye. So 10% or less of that as a copay is very reasonable.
Yes.
I'm just going to tell you about hearsay. About a year ago, sudden, a year or so ago, I heard all of a sudden knew 3 people who were going to have cataract surgery. These people are all about my age, 62. No, but and they happen to all be ladies. And anyway, I was kind of interested in that, and what they were saying is, yes, Medicare would pay for it mostly, unless you wanted what's called the crystal lens, which was $5,000. So, and some of them chose the crystal lens. I think they all chose the crystal lens. They paid the extra money for the crystal lens. So, I think that may be where you hear from $300 to $5,000. It's not, and I don't know what the crystal lens is. It's kind of interesting if those 3 ladies, 2 of them had real good results and 1 didn't.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. We were talking about how there's going to be decisions. The gentleman said something about the, you hear me? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, if we were to privatize, like the plan is said, okay, what is there a guarantee that the insurance companies you're dealing with would not even make it even worse as you get older, have more restrictions, and make it even, you talk about the death squads or whatever, wouldn't it be exponentialized to a degree because they'd be looking for more loopholes and more ways to save money? Because basically it seems like a lot of the insurance companies are looking for more and more ways to make money and not in the interest of the individual. So to blame it strictly on the government totally is, I think it's not really about the government, it's about money, the bottom line. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think you're probably absolutely right, because the insurance companies are still the driving factor in all of this, wanting to make money, and the insurance companies are still the ones that are underwriting the care with Medicare and being paid for it, and they want more and more and more money. So that's the whole idea about all
the more benefit that they pay out, the less they make. So they have to find ways of cutting those benefits. One way is to come up with justifications.
Start talking about what?
An HMO.
So, well,
But it would exist no matter what. People are acting like, oh, it's the government who's creating this. Well, it's not necessarily the case. I just wanted to throw that out. That's my observation as I was thinking about this just now.
yes, that's because it's the insurance companies are doing that.
Judy, it apparently from everything you're saying, there's the seniors are going to be hit with an avalanche of fresh legislation, but apparently they don't know it's coming. Now, the AARP, of which the most seniors seem to be involved, would seem to be the vehicle that would inform them of all of this. What's your opinion of the AARP? Has it just been privatized to a point where it's just an insurance scam?
I don't want to be quoted as the field organizer for Texas Alliance for Retired Americans, so let me just step aside and say from Judy Bryant's perspective, who became an AARP member when, they sent it to me, and who is not a member any longer, because I think exactly what you said is right. And the Alliance for Retired Americans was formed 13 years ago for the express purpose of being an activist, engaging organization that informed seniors and about to be seniors about issues and got them, active in their community. And so I think that unfortunately AARP has become more insurance.
Well, one of the, just for informational purposes, one of the most clueless characters I knew in Xerox is now the president of AARP, so...
That's interesting. So, Obviously, yes. Yeah, I did. It's in my pocket. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go right ahead.
It's not so much that they're an insurance company, they're now profit motivated. They're profit motivated and they're doing it from several different angles besides just insurance.
It's like the saga system, we're starting off to help seniors, and now it's just a profit.
Exactly.
And I mean, just for your info, the Alliance for Retired Americans, well, the Texas Alliance for Retired Americans is a nonprofit 501c3, and our national organization has also 501c4 status to be able to do political action and various things, and we do it. We're in the process of becoming a 501c4 here in Texas too, so we can, take political action. But education is the important thing for people to really know, and the more you can share and talk about things and know about it, the more enlightened you become, and hopefully we can spread the message to a lot of friends and things to be advocates and activists for issues that affect us. Because too many times we all know seniors who have been taken to the cleaners on a lot of different issues because they just didn't know any better and they did not have anyone to be their advocate. And so the more we can educate people about what's going on, the better we are.
I would like to address some of the very basics of Medicare that people really don't understand or know. Plan A under Medicare has a $147 deductible, and it covers most of the hospital cost. Plan B currently has an $1,156 deductible. And the surprise under Plan B is it's an 80-20 plan, unlimited. So if you have a $100,000 bill for a major surgery, you owe 20% of it. That's your liability. And it could be $20,000 or more. That is the reason for either a supplement of some kind. I would speak against an HMO or an Advantage plan, which I happen to have, because there are a lot of unknowns involved in those plans. I would support supplements, which gives you a fixed premium and pays 100% of everything that A and B does not. So people need to be informed about that, and they're not.
That would be really good for, like you said, a fixed premium that pays 100% of what Medicare does not pay. I have the Medicare Advantage plan with TRS and researched it carefully, and so far it's been okay, but
I wanted to ask the gentleman who just said about the A and B. Are you talking about the supplemental plans? They got letters? I don't know about Medicare A and B other than A is for hospital.
Mm-hmm. B is for doctors.
Right.
Except drugs.
Right.
Drugs are not covered under Medicare at all.
But when you were talking about, when you was talking about A and B, you weren't talking about the supplements labeled A and B.
I was suggesting a supplement over an Advantage or an HMO because they offer too many surprises.
But he was talking about Medicare Part A and Part B, and the deductible.
Well, what I didn't get, he was talking about them like there were some sort of options, but he was really talking about the basics of A and B, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have an option about that. Our options are what kind of supplements we get.
There are supplements, there's
Right.
HMO.
I gotta find out where
Right.
you got those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Last January, I dropped a kidney stone at the Campbell. I had to go for an ambulance ride. I paid my share of the bill in March, but just a couple of days ago, I got a bill in the mail from a collection agency wanting to double dip, wanting me to pay it again. beware of these scams. They are preying on, especially on seniors and people with disabilities who may not remember paying the first time right and left. So I just wanted to know if people were aware of this type of situation.
One other thing. In 2006, President Bush passed the law requiring all seniors to have a drug plan. Medicare A and B does not include drugs. You have to have a drug plan. If you have a supplement, there's no drugs. You still have to have a drug plan. If you have an Advantage plan, there may be some drug coverage. And it's tiered, and there are deductibles and copays. What most people don't know about that law and drug plans is if they don't have it when they're 65, then there is a rather severe penalty when it's discovered, and that penalty is a percentage, without going into a lot of detail, that lasts for the rest of your life. It is not a one-time deal.
Oh, I was not aware of that,
Yes,
but, so it's for the rest of your life if you don't, wow.
If you
to look
wait
into
until you're 67 and you're qualified at 66 and 6 months to have a drug plan and didn't get one because you didn't know or weren't told, then it's 1% per month of the average premium for a drug plan across the United States for the rest of your life, on
Wow.
top of whatever your premium might be.
Wow. Yeah.
There are a lot of surprises out there.
Yes, and no one is too eager to educate people so that they can avoid those surprises, and that's the problem.
Trying to do it right now.
Right, well, exactly, thank you, because that's not something I was aware of. I need to look more.
I am in the benefit business, so I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, and I will look forward to getting that email from you to do that, because that's the whole purpose of, you know, coming together is sharing information and getting information so that you hopefully will not be victims of scams, and so that you know whereof you speak when you speak up for things.
How familiar are you with Social Security and benefits?
Social Security and benefits, just basic information, because I'm not yet, you know, in the whole process. Just all the things I've learned in my job as field organizer, but.
Okay. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you know how many variety or numbers of different ways Social Security benefits can be calculated?
No, I have no idea.
Most people don't. 567 different ways in which you can calculate based on a married couple collecting
Social Security.
Social Security benefits. Now, let me ask you this question. If you go down to Social Security and just apply, they're not going to tell you about all those different choices. You're just going to get one out of 567. It may or may not be the right one for you and or your spouse. So it would pay you to become familiar with that fact and sit down with somebody. Now, if you're already 70 or more, it's not going to be something that's changeable. But if you're 65 or less, you've got everything on your side of the ledger.
To do that and
To do correct planning, yes ma'am.
yeah, and to do the changes. That's really important, because so many people are losing, I'm sure, benefits that should be theirs because they're not informed.
Right.
And I don't know if you all are aware of the fact that there are proposals out there to close many of the Social Security offices and make everybody more dependent on talking to people by phone Social Security are using the internet, and we know that there's a lot of seniors who don't have computers, who don't use the internet, and so that's going to cut back even more on services and people being able to ask questions face to face and find out information about a lot of things.
Personal experience. Are you familiar with the fact that there's a spousal benefit?
Yes. I mean, I know that there is, yes.
Okay. My wife wanted to claim her Social Security, and she was a teacher, and she was about to retire. And I knew that Social Security would be reduced accordingly. So we did file for her Medicare, which we had to do when she was 65. And shortly thereafter, we have filed for spousal benefits. What that means is she's now receiving for over a year half of what I'm entitled to with no penalty to me or her. And it's good up until 70 and a half. At 70 and a half, we will inquire as to what eligibility she has for Social Security while she's getting TRS. Yes, when she filed for her spousal, or when she got her TRS benefit, there was a reduction in her Social Security, but it was around 10-12%. It wasn't half or something like that. So we've got our fingers crossed that when we find out what her Social Security benefits could be in another couple of years, that if it's greater than what she's receiving under spousal, what would the benefit be to her after a penalty reduction? We don't know yet, but it's still out there. The point is that people just don't know about this and don't know to ask about it. So we're getting 4 years of spousal benefits, which is half of mine, which we could have lost.
Well, and for those of us who are single educators who are retired, and I mean, we don't have the option, you know, with a lot of those things.
You don't have the option. Were you ever married?
Yes.
Is your spouse deceased?
No.
Okay. Well.
But yeah, I was married for 10 years, and so that, I mean, I was 11 years or whatever, and that, I do know, I'm aware of that. But
Are you aware that you can qualify for if you're over 62? That's all the reason that she still can have a benefit under Social Security.
So, but going through that, I mean, I very well may, I need to look into that.
Yes, you do.
Before I, am eligible here shortly for my full Social Security benefits. So, what? Well, I haven't in all these years.
Judy, from what I've heard, it would seem that every senior should sit down with an advocate experienced in all these ins and outs and really get the best benefit, because obviously there are powers that be that are apt to cut everything. So, that seems to me to, but from because so many more people I run into almost every day need care but can't manage it or can't get to it. So I think a program where you say, look, seniors, you need to sit down and make sure you're getting the right benefits. It seems to be clearer and clearer. And I saw probably a national campaign saying, look, it's not just, as the gentleman said, it's not just one benefit. It's 500 and so different calculations. Certainly, I didn't know that, frankly. I just accepted what I was given and, goodbye. But, but to me, it didn't make a lot, I wasn't particularly worried. But obviously, some people who are crucially dependent on Social Security and are apt to lose it really do need to get because most people aren't earning enough, and more people aren't earning enough to be able to save for anything. Which is the plan, really, is to make paupers of the bottom 20% of Americans. I mean, it's a deliberate plan. It's quite obvious. It's quite obvious.
Yes,
it's happening. I just parenthetically, I would say there's a moral component to this. Mm-hmm. And these people, I think, like Ryan, are vile, absolutely vile and immoral. And you just shouldn't attack them on numbers and stuff. people in this country are supposedly deeply religious. These people are not. Yet they're masquerading it, most of them, as deeply religious. Yeah. So
care about people.
They don't give a damn about people.
No.
They're not. They only care about their ridiculous, immoral, uneconomic lunacy, really, and their ideology. That's all they care about. But the people who suffer are the people who've worked all their lives for low pay and are dependent on these things. And that's the attack that should be made on these people like Ryan and his gang of immoral, vile people. And that's my judgment.
One of the things I think any of you would find helpful if you've not stumbled into it is in the Dallas Morning News on Tuesday, in the section of the newspaper that has the comics in it, and a lot of other things, entertainment, whatnot. In the middle of that section, there's a writer who is a retired, long-time Social Security employee. I can't tell you his name. I've read it, but I don't have it memorized. But he writes and he answers the most commonly asked questions that people come up with that have to do with Social Security. And he does it in a very succinct, easy to understand method. Some of them he comes back and answers over and over again. And he'll usually always say, well, I know I've answered this question 3 times in the last year, but people just keep asking, you know. But, you know, I've just found, I've probably scanned his columns for 5, 6, 7 years. And I found that it really does tell you a lot. And what it doesn't tell you, a lot of times he'll offer something you can go up to his website and download an informational sheet on that subject. Or he'll direct you to where you need to go to ask the question. So we're just all out there in the big giant public floating around, and there's not really anybody who's a direct advocate to Social Security. You know, to me, it was refreshing to find somebody who was very knowledgeable of it because they worked there so long and they were involved in a job that made them deal with these kind of issues. And now they're writing a column in the paper and it's easy to read them. And a lot of times you'll get your basic questions answered just from reading the column. And if it's on something you know a lot about, you can just blow it off and look for it next week. But it's always on Tuesday in that like arts and entertainment section of the paper. Okay?
Thank you. Yes, I have seen that column, and that is very good.
I'd like to mention one of our members who are not here, Norma Warner and her husband Charles. They've worked for like 35, 40 years for Social Security, so I could call and invite them to come here and maybe speak. All right, I'll give her a call. Yeah, she's been here. Thank you, Judy.
That would be awesome because, and to pass the message around to people, because education is our greatest weapon. And you've raised a lot of things that I'm going to really look into in the next few months before I actually apply for Social Security, because since it's going to be cut anyway because of TRS, I would like it to be cut the least amount possible.
Do you know anybody in the United States today that would be opposed to an 8% guaranteed return for 4 years? Delaying taking Social Security between 66.5 and 70.5 is a guaranteed 8% compounded growth in your Social Security benefit for the rest of your life. People, as someone mentioned, who's worked all their lives to get Social Security and do not have a retirement plan or have not been thrifty and they need it at 62 are subject to a lot of unclaimed available benefits. So I would suggest everybody here, if you have not done it and you have access to a computer, to go on to socialsecurity.gov, register under your own name and your own Social Security number, create a password that you can remember, it's private to you, and look at your Social Security benefits and see exactly what's out there, what you may not yet have claimed or what you could claim, and go from there. Because there's a lot of good information on the socialsecurity.gov website. Now, if you're a few months away and can wait till 17 and a half, it's worth 32% more income to you. I'm not saying that you need to do that. I'm just giving you the information.
Yeah, I know it probably is.
Just as an observation, you know, the problem today is most people can't work, don't work, are not able to work until 65. I mean, because in corporate America, most people get fired in their 50. And many of my friends in Xerox got fired in their, 55, 65, never worked again. And that's the standard thing. That's the standard practice in corporate. And the other thing that's a fact is, companies like Xerox, they've dumped everyone off of their retirement plans onto Social Security. And so, they're not picking up, not shouldering much of the burden anymore. It's quite amazing, but, so really, there is a crisis of retirement, and I think most people don't realize how bad it's going to get, especially if people like Ryan have a hand in it. Funded by the Koch brothers and other wonderful citizens of this country, I guess
I also have one other thing that I want to pass around. Trini Garza and Fernando Rojas that I mentioned are both part of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, and I work with them at the Senior Source here in Dallas. And the U.S. government passed what's called the Elder Justice Act that makes it a punishable offense to abuse older Americans in nursing homes. It requires prompt reporting of abuse, criminal background check, requirements for new employees in direct contact with patients at nursing homes, health agencies, and so forth. It says adult protective services would be funded much like child protective services is. Elder abuse has been under-restricted, under-researched, under-reported, underfunded, and under-prosecuted. And they passed the Elder Justice Act, but they did not fund it. So the Senior Source is collecting names on a petition to fully fund the Elder Justice Act. And if you would be so kind as to sign one of these, I would appreciate it. I'm going to share it at our Texas Alliance for Retired Americans meeting also next week. And I'll give these to Fernando Rojas and Trini Garza. So, John, thank you so much thank you all so very much. And oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. He has more.
If that's the last, I'm volunteer MC, so forgive the confusion. So if anyone would like to get up and say their point of view, now is your chance. First person, please. And up here. He's absconded. I'm the MC. Stand in.
Good. That's what I'll do. Be sure to limit everybody to 5 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Tom never does, so.
Well, I know we gotta get some. That's very good shape.
We're adequate time for fire away, sir.
Fire away. How many of you gentlemen here are veterans? How many of you ladies here are married to a veteran, or divorced from a veteran, or a widow of a veteran. Are you aware that there's a veterans benefit for nursing home care?
Yes.
It's not easy to get, but it's out there. It's called a non-combat related disability. You have to be 65 years of age or older. You have to have served during a wartime period, Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, or 1991 or later Desert Storm. There's no end to that one yet. You have to have served 181 days or more, active duty, and you have to have received an honorable discharge. If you meet all of those qualifications, you're eligible to apply for the benefit. Now, because it's a monetary benefit, there are some qualifications under that arena which are too lengthy and detailed to go in at this time, but just to be aware of it. I will caution you not to try to do that yourself, because it's about a 20-page form that looks like a complex income tax return. You need to have help.
That was very quick. Anyway, next person do wish to speak, please. Next person.
Well, the Nazis did engage in direct gericide, where they actually gassed elders. They were not trying to erase the memory of any particular era. They were just claiming that anyone who could not work could not live. And so that was part of the T4 extermination program, which also included younger people with disabilities. We don't have anything like that since then, but we have had, probably since Social Security and Medicare were enacted, we've had indirect gericide, where the opponents to these programs have been trying to gut them and to repeal them outright, to privatize them. Initially, the motive was to erase all memory of the First World Depression, 1930s. And now, I think the motive is to erase all memory of the 60s, because the 1500-year-old world order was almost deposed during the 60s by the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. We came very close to a revolution, and ever since, starting in the 70s, including the formation of ALEC in 1973 and many other things that have been touched on by various and sundry speakers over the months and years, they've been closed. The ruling class, also known as the 1%, known by some as Illuminati, which is just a fancy name for the bosses, have been closing ranks to reinstate basically the 13th century, and so they have to erase all memory of the 60s, and that's what we're looking at with this Ryan scam and various other attacks against people who actually work for a living and aren't just the descendants of the criminal thugs who deposed the Roman Empire. Thank you. See, I'm always concise.
Okay, the next person, please. Ray?
I don't know if I have anything worth talking about.
Oh, come on, Ray. I mean, you know, you're amongst friends. Well, and anybody else?
Anybody else want to say?
I'll say a few words then, if you like. I spent a few weeks in England lately, came back 2 weeks ago. We have 3 parties who the general public have rejected totally. So it looks like UKIP, it's called, is on the ascendant. This current gang of half-wits in power are hell-bent on privatizing everything possible. So the National Health Service is radically being privatized. So unlike most Americans think that England's a welfare state paradise, well, that's gone. As you know, only a couple of months back, the Royal Mail was privatized. The reason given, I suppose, was that it was publicly owned, so it needed to be privatized to become more efficient. They went to Goldman Sachs in London to get a valuation. So it turned out that they gave a valuation of about 3 billion. When the stock came to the market, it turned out to be it was worth 6 billion. So the public were fleeced out of half the value. They also said, Vince Cable said, who was part of the government, that he wanted to make sure there were these core investors who would look after be stewards of the company. It turned out that some of these so-called core investors were American hedge funds, who immediately after 2 weeks sold out. So I mean, that's the most, anyway, so the lesson is that when you privatize public services, what you get is a higher cost passed on to the public, and you get, certainly in England's case, this privatized system, then run by immigrants, costing almost nothing. So the beneficiaries of this privatized whatever it is, like the prison services and the welfare to work services and the probation services, you get a few people making out like bandits, and the public paying a lot more money, and you get far worse services for your money. So that's the scam going on, and it's the push for a few people to fleece the rest of the country. Anyway, so as I publicly said, on my latest book, I'm going to have a cartoon on the back of it, which shows Buckingham Palace with renamed Buckingham Hotel, and in Chinese there will be a subscription saying, "You fools, you fools, you fools." There will be a BBC interviewer interviewing this fat cat, dark-suited city person, and the city person will be saying, "Yes, it's a dreadful shame that we've had to privatize our last British asset, but we made a wonderful amount in fees." So, that's England today, folks. But just other thing, after the Labour Party after the war did 3 things. They basically said, never again. They introduced public housing, public health care, and public schooling. And I was a beneficiary of all 3 for a time. Now, of course, the public housing has been sold off and redeveloped, huge estates. There's a tremendous housing shortage in London and in England generally, but most of these new apartments are being sold off to Chinese. It's wonderful. And by the way, in the south of England now, the average house, the required payment or cost of an average house is now 10 times the average income. It's unaffordable for most people. And yet the lunatic Labour Party had this mass immigration policy, for whatever reasons, I don't know. One of Tony Blair's wonderful schemes for the country. Other than that, all was well. At least the beer was quite good. The next person, please. I've had my little rant.
So if there's a shortage of housing, where do people, and there's a lot of immigration, where are people living in tenements?
Well, what tends to happen, I've seen this, as you know, we have a lot of Asians, and they tend to buy up houses, And so you have the house, and then 2 yards away in the back garden, or the backyard, they build another house. Or they erect sheds, and so you have beds in sheds. So, you know, so we're cramming more and more people in, and every politician says all this mass immigration is just wonderful. It's really helping the economy. And so this is why the people have said to the three parties who advocate all of this, we have had enough. We have had enough. Because it's overloading schools. You have schools, you know, which have now turned totally Muslim entirely, whole school districts. You know, I'm not typically against Muslims, but, you know, there's a limit to things, and we've exceeded it by a mile. And the economy, you know, the British economy is still not recovered back to where it was in 07, still not. But because it's increasing, this wonderful political party in power is claiming victory. Oh, let's see, it's recovering the fastest.
That sounds amazingly similar, doesn't it?
Well, you know, actually, the economy in America did recover after 4 years, okay? But I will... Anyway, there's a fellow called Thomas Piketty, you may have heard of him. He is now the author of this book on inequality. What basically he's shown that equality, you know, has gained tremendously from the 20s to about the mid-70s, is now back up way beyond even the 20s. No, the inequality, yeah. And because, starting with Reaganomics and Thatcheramics, all tax rates, corporate tax rates, were cut down and down and down, and the beneficiaries were the guys at the top who have stolen democracy. So good luck, folks. Anybody else? Now's your chance. At least, just parenthetically, my wife just loves you guys. She says, I've heard you ranting enough, you can go and bore those people. Yes, really.
That's wonderful.
Very good.
Judy, did she wrap it up now, or?
Pardon me? Yeah, Judy, yes, that's right. Judy, apparently nobody else wants to speak, so please wrap it up as the best you can. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for sharing such good information and everything, and I am very glad that Susan had a suggestion of someone who had worked for Social Security to come and talk, and when you get that scheduled, we will make sure we really spread it around too, because that's the key, and thank you for sharing, because there's so many intricacies, obviously, of everything regarding any of the things that we paid into, that we earned, but getting what you really are supposed to is another story if you don't know all the ins and outs. And so it's very important to do that. And I really thank Tom for inviting me to share the information. And I also, I can't believe I forgot these, walked out the door. I'm going to give him at our next meeting, at our Terra meeting, because I'll be with my grandkids next Saturday. But I have voting records of, it's voting records of all the congressional votes that were taken, that there's 10 votes that are regarding senior issues, and the National Alliance for Retired Americans publishes these each year, publishes these voting records on issues of importance to seniors. And I will see that I give these to Tom. They shipped them to me from DC. So I want to make sure that people get them. And I will give them to him at our meeting on Wednesday so he can share them with you. Because it gives you, I mean, you probably know how your congressman or woman voted, but it gives you a good guide to all of the issues that are affecting seniors. And that's how they put this together. They take 10 issues in the House and 10 issues in the Senate, and it's all explained in there, and it's in booklet form, so you can see that, and I will share that and give them to him. And again, I thank you all for being, this was great interaction and everything, and I really appreciate that very, very much. And I also hope that you will come join us with our Dallas Terra chapter meeting, and that you put July the 30th on your calendar for ALEC, because you will be hearing about it lots, and we've got to show up and let them know that we will not be run over by them anymore. More and more corporations and individuals are getting out of ALEC and dropping their membership. Some of our really well-respected state legislators got in it by mistake. You know, they didn't know any better when they were first elected, and then they found out what it was like, and they dropped their membership. So, yes, sir.
What do you think they're dropping it because of the spotlight that organizations like yours and others are shedding or putting on it?
Yes, because
they've given up necessarily the principles.
probably not, but they've also found out how much negative publicity has been, the light has been shed on ALEC much, much more in the last few years. I think in 2012, I've forgotten how many corporations and individuals there were that dropped their membership. It was one of the things I was reading said something about ALEC's very bad day, when a lot of people dropped it, and it's because a lot of people just didn't know about it. I know there were ALEC seminars done at our Las Vegas Alliance for Retired Americans convention that were very, very good. And I was monitoring those. All of the staff did that, and the people were walking out because most of them did not know about ALEC and did not know what they did. And so, the more people get educated about it, I think that's really important. And just recently, they had a regional convention in Kansas City a few weeks ago, and they had about 500 people who showed up there to protest and unwelcome them to Kansas City. Last year they had a meeting in Oklahoma City. They had about 300 or 400 people and were told, we'll never come back to Oklahoma. So if they say, we'll never come back to Texas, that'd be okay too. I mean, we will show them un-Texas hospitality, so hopefully. And of course our mayor is one of the people who, you know, brought them here to to Dallas. And the Anatole is not a great place to protest, but the plans are that there will be a staging area where people can go and park for free, and we'll have shuttle buses to take folks over there. All these plans are all being, you know, worked out, so people can do that and make it just be there for an hour, but have lots of publicity about it, and have some action and lunch and various things. So within the next 2 to 3 weeks, everything will be, you know, firmed up, and you get information. Thank you. Thank you.
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like us, or follow us, and get notices of all our videos. We love it even when you call. So when visiting the Barbex restaurant, tell them you want your reservation to the next College